The house stood at the end of the gravel road, hidden beneath a thick canopy of rotting trees that leaned like watchful giants. For years, locals avoided the property, calling it cursed, haunted, or worse. No one stayed for long, not even the animals. The only sounds that dared approach were the wind's whistling moans and the occasional thump that echoed from the cellar beneath the house. Clara Davis didn't believe in curses or ghost stories. A freelance photographer, she specialized in documenting abandoned buildings. So when she received an anonymous tip about a forgotten mansion in the woods near Fairhill, her curiosity overcame her common sense. The photos she could take here, she thought, might finally land her a feature in a major magazine. The moment Clara stepped through the rusted gate, she felt it, the shift in the air. It grew heavier, denser, as if the very oxygen was being filtered through something unseen. The trees quieted behind her, and for a moment, everything froze. Even her phone lost signal. She tried to ignore the tightening in her chest and pressed on. Inside, the house smelled like mildew and iron. Wallpaper peeled off like skin, and the wooden floors groaned under every step. Her camera flashed, illuminating claw marks on the hallway walls, deep, erratic, not quite human. A faint buzzing came from the upper floor like 1,000 whispering voices just beyond hearing. She climbed the staircase slowly, her boots creaking in rhythm with her heartbeat. The buzzing intensified. On the second floor, every door was shut except one, the one at the end of the hall. It was ajar, as if inviting her. Inside was a child's bedroom. A rotting crib sat in one corner, its wood splintered and stained. Toys were scattered across the floor, their glass eyes cracked or missing. On the far wall, scrawled in charcoal, were the words, "She waits below." Clara's breath caught. She spun around, convinced she'd heard footsteps behind her. But the hallway was empty. Back in the room, she crouched to inspect the message. A sudden breeze pushed the door open fully, slamming it against the wall with a deafening crack. Clara jumped, her heart pounding. The buzzing returned, closer this time. She turned on her flashlight, sweeping the beam across the room. That's when she saw it, a trapdoor beneath the rug. It wasn't locked, only sealed shut with a rusty chain, as if someone had wanted to keep something inside. The chain crumbled at her touch. She pulled open the door and peered into blackness. The air that rose from below was wrong, cold, metallic, with the unmistakable scent of decay. She aimed her flashlight into the darkness. A narrow stairwell spiraled downward, swallowed by shadow. With trembling fingers, she descended. The air thickened with every step. The walls were damp and lined with scratch marks. Her flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied. At the bottom, the cellar opened into a vast underground chamber. Clara froze. Thousands of dolls filled the room. Every shelf, every crevice, packed tightly with dolls of every size and age. Their eyes reflected the flashlight's beam like the eyes of animals. Some were missing limbs. Others had mouths sewn shut. In the center of the room stood a crib, not like the one upstairs. This one was made of bone. Clara raised her camera, then stopped. Something moved. A shadow shifted behind the crib. A tall figure, emaciated and contorted, emerged slowly. Its limbs were long and twitching, its head tilted too far to one side, neck half broken. Its face was covered by a porcelain mask, cracked down the middle. It opened its mouth, but there was no sound, just the same buzzing from before, now deafening. It wasn't noise. It was pressure, vibrating through her skull. The figure stepped forward. Clara screamed and bolted for the stairs. Her flashlight flickered violently, then died. She fumbled in darkness, breath ragged, her hands scraping against the stone walls. Behind her, footsteps, slow, dragging, impossibly loud. She made it to the top of the stairs and slammed the trapdoor shut. Silence. She backed away, heart racing. The door held. But then something knocked from beneath. 3 loud, deliberate knocks. She ran, out of the room, down the hallway, out the front door. The woods seemed even darker now, the trees warped and shifting. She didn't stop until she reached her car, breathless and shaking. Clara drove home that night with the camera on her lap, unwilling to look at the photos until morning. She needed sleep, needed to convince herself it had been a hallucination. But when she finally reviewed the pictures the next day, her blood turned to ice. In every photo taken inside the house, every hallway, every room, even those she thought she'd taken alone, there was a figure in the background, watching. Sometimes from behind a door, sometimes in a mirror. And in the final photo, the one taken just before she opened the trap door, the figure was crouched behind her. Its hand was almost touching her shoulder. Clara didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Even after deleting the photos, even after smashing the camera against the floor until the lens cracked like shattered bone, she could feel it, the presence. It hadn't stayed in the house. It had followed her. The mirror in her bedroom fogged up every few minutes, as if someone were breathing on it from the other side. Doors she had locked were found open. Lights flickered, even when the power was off. Her phone would ring at 3:17 a.m. every night, but when she answered there was only silence, and that same unbearable buzzing. By the third night, Clara decided to leave. She packed her essentials in a single bag and drove to her sister's cabin, deep in the countryside, miles from anyone, and further still from the house in the woods. She thought she'd be safe there. The first night at the cabin was quiet. Too quiet. No buzzing, no creaking, no phone calls. Just the sound of wind brushing against the windows and the distant hoot of an owl. Clara began to hope, just a sliver of belief, that maybe the presence had been tied to the house. Maybe destroying the camera had cut the connection. She was wrong. At 3:17 a.m., the cabin's old radio turned on by itself. Static burst through the speakers, then cleared just enough for a whispering voice to emerge. It wasn't speaking a language. Clara understood, but it was repeating something again and again. A chant, broken and distorted. Clara sat up in bed, heart pounding, and watched the radio tremble on the wooden shelf as though something inside it wanted to crawl out. Then the whispering stopped. The static hissed one last time, and the radio fell silent. But the voice remained, not from the radio, from inside the walls. She pressed her ear to the wooden panels and heard it. Something crawling, scraping. A moan, a laugh, a whisper. She waits below. Clara screamed and backed away, grabbing her phone to call her sister. No signal. She tried the landline. Dead. The lights flickered violently, then went out completely. Suddenly, every window in the cabin began to fog, one by one, as if something was breathing on the glass. She rushed to the front door, locked. She hadn't locked it. Something had. She pounded on it with her fists, yelling for help. In the background, footsteps began, slow. Wet-sounding steps across the wooden floor. But the floor in the cabin was dry. They weren't footsteps from this world. She turned, slowly, heart thudding in her ears. There it was, standing in the center of the dark room, illuminated only by moonlight seeping through the fogged-up windows. The same figure from the house. Gaunt, elongated, the porcelain mask now hanging loosely from one side of its face. Beneath the broken mask, something twitched and writhed like maggots trapped beneath skin. Clara couldn't move. Her body froze with terror, unable to scream, unable to breathe. The thing tilted its head. Then it opened its mouth. A torrent of buzzing erupted, louder, sharper, as if it were drilling into her mind. Her vision blurred. Blood trickled from her nose. Her knees buckled, she collapsed, and everything went black. When she awoke, the sun was rising, casting warm gold through the broken front window. The door was wide open. The figure was gone. She drove. She didn't know where, just away. She didn't stop for gas, didn't stop to eat. She kept driving until her car finally sputtered out and died on a long-abandoned road near a forgotten town. There she wandered into a diner and collapsed at a booth, rambling about dolls, the seller, the thing that followed her. The old woman behind the counter listened in silence, her expression unreadable. When Clara finished, the woman placed a glass of water in front of her and said, "You went to that house, didn't you?" Clara nodded weakly. The woman sighed. She waits below. That's what they always say. She's older than the town, older than the trees. They tried to bury her long ago, but she wasn't dead. Not really. The house was built on her grave, to trap her, to hold her there. People who go in never come out the same. Clara's hands trembled. The woman continued. She takes something from you, your warmth, your soul, and she leaves something behind. Clara looked down at her arm. A small black mark was growing near her wrist, a perfect circle, like a brand. It pulsed. Is there a way to stop it? Clara whispered. The woman hesitated. Then, you have to go back. Clara's heart dropped. Back? She's attached to you now. A tether. You opened the door. You broke the seal. The only way to end it is to go back, go below, seal it again, with blood. Clara stared at her reflection in the window. Her eyes were darker, her skin paler. The buzzing never stopped. She realized then she was already dying. Being drained, she had no choice. 2 nights later, she returned. The house was waiting, its door swinging open as she approached. Inside, the air was colder than death. She retraced her steps, up the stairs, into the child's room. The message on the wall had changed. She is you now. The trapdoor opened by itself. Clara descended into darkness one last time. The cellar was the same. The dolls watched in silence, but the bone crib was now filled, with something shifting under a sheet of old lace. The buzzing filled the chamber, a symphony of voices speaking in tongues. The figure emerged, mask fully removed. Its face, it was her own, but decayed, hollow. A reflection of what she would become. It stepped forward and reached out a hand. Clara understood what had to be done. She took the knife from her pocket, the one she brought to sever the connection, to seal the door. She stabbed it into the floor, into the old markings etched into the stone. The figure screamed, not in sound, but in vibration, shaking the walls, the dolls, the very air itself. Clara began to chant the words the woman had given her, words older than English, words that hurt to speak. The floor split. Light, pure burning white, erupted from below, swallowing the figure. The buzzing stopped. The dolls crumbled into dust, and Clara collapsed. When she awoke, she was outside. Morning light filtered through. The trees. The house was gone, just an empty field. No more buzzing, no more whispers. But on her wrist, the black mark remained, faint like a scar. And deep in her mind, in the silence of night, sometimes she hears it again. A knock from beneath. The floor. 3 knocks, waiting.